Alright, so first I want to start by saying Kalalali Hawa, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of James Graham Stone. Salutation to you, Akim, present truth in sincerity. Shalom, this is Brother Kanan from James, Jamaica, and today's lesson will be about being content. You know what I mean? And what it really means to be content. As you can see on the screen, it says to be content doesn't mean you don't desire more, right? So it don't mean so you not seek more or you don't want more, but it means you're thankful for what you have and patient for what's to come. And I feel like thankful and the patient part is key in understanding um, being content. And I mean, I'm going to get into some scriptures also, and have a little discussion or point out a few things. Right? So, yes, patient and being thankful. So, someone might say, okay, how do you balance this? Because there's a balance to it. And I think the word patience really bring the balance to how you put your desires and being satisfied at the same time, because you're gonna always have desires. You're gonna always have, as scripture say, you're gonna always lust for more, whether it want be physically, whether it want be something that is um, everything comes in a physical state when it comes to being the desires, really, or most things comes to a physical state when it comes to desires. And that part, there's the part where that a person go off. So desiring fleshly lusts and things of this world is what we're really talking about. All right, so let's put it into context, right? So a lot of times we don't exercise the patience for the things that we desire, because you're always trying to improve yourself, you're always trying to be better, but sometimes doing so you will bring distress upon yourself and bring an heavy mind upon yourself. And we're going to get into that. Now I'm going to start with a precept. I just read what is on screen. I'm going to start with a precept, and I'm going to start from Timothy 6 and verse 6. We're going to read to verse 10. Let's start. So this is First Timothy 6 and verse 6. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. Now, just to pause there. So it point out necessities there. You know what I mean? So it's basically giving you a guideline of what to be content with. You know? Food and raiment, let us there with be content. No, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna want other things. No, it doesn't mean that. But again, as you see on screen, the patient part is key and is of much importance, because yes, if you have it to get anything else, why not? You're to have, the earth is naturally created for pleasure, you know what I mean? And you whatever you have, you get it to basically bring out that. But when you're going out of your means, that's where the danger comes. When you're not being patient, that's where the danger comes, because now you're stepping out of line to achieve something that you're not ready yet ready for. You know what I mean? And as I said, that's where the danger comes. But let's continue. All right. It says, verse 9, but they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare. And this is pointing out that even wealth of this world can lead you off. All right. So sometimes it's not even, well, for most part, it's not even great to even try to achieve too much, because even Solomon said that, give me food, just paraphrasing, basically, uh, what you need, basically, let's put it that way. So even not have too much and then get proud and forget God. I am the too poor, where I'm cursed the most high. You know what I mean? But let's continue. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare. When you have a lot of money, you're gonna want to use it, right? Because you have it for a purpose. That's why you have it, right? And into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men into destruction and perdition, right? For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after they have erred from the faith, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows, right? So it's two things. Well, a lot of things, but highlighting in this, you know what I mean? Not being content and not being patient, as patience work with content, not being patient for your desires, or not putting your desires in proper perspective, you know what I mean? Not balancing needs and wants, because wants are things that you can do without, but if you are in the position to do so, then fine, you know what I mean? With constraint and mortifying yourself in the proper perspective. Nothing is wrong with that. Alright? But again, if you put yourself in harm's way and hurtful loss, as the scripture said, then you're not being content. You know what I mean? And a lot of decisions we make in life, not weighing the pros and the cons and the proper perspective. And it messed up you in the future, you know, because to be positive thinking and sometimes tempting the Most High, which is really what it is not good, because you may say to yourself, okay, if things were okay, all right, let's put it this way. Let's say you're saying to yourself, all right, the Most High is gonna work this out for me, all right, and you are not being content and taking risk. They're not saying there's nothing wrong with risk, but some risks are not worthy. Some risk are not showing humbleness and being content, and it's not needful, as the scripture is saying. You're really putting, in a sense, you're tempting the Most High, and that is the reason why a lot of times when we do stuff like this, it backfires. You know what I mean? Because you're testing the Most High. You're putting yourself into hurtful loss. Alright, let's continue. Is there more there? Alright, just read 11. But thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. Alright, so these are key things. Now let me get the next precept. Alright, this is Philippians 4 and verse 11 to 13. So it says not that it says not that I speak in respect of want, not respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. You know what I mean? And the Most I tell you what state really. With food and raiment be thou content. Right? So really and truly, your ultimate in this time is basically to feed yourself, to not be naked. You know what I mean? To basically cover yourself. Anything after that is if you're able to do so, and if you're not able to do so and you're forcing it, you're going overboard. You're not being content. Right? Let's continue. It says, I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. In whatever situation you are in, you have to be able to balance yourself in that. Right? It says, everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Yahushai, which strengthen me. Right? Now, it's basically saying the same thing, right? And the mere point is to find, because everybody is different and everybody has a different desires, right? Or whatever is basically your, but sometimes you have, well, you have to exercise patience, sorry, and execute the whatever plan you have to be executed in the proper time frame and state, not putting yourself in harm's way, right? Because then if you neglect being content, because of what we're referring to, and put yourself out there where you're now in depth or in a situation where your basic need is no longer, well, it's always going to be a key factor because it's your need, but if your basic need is being hindered by your wants, then you're not planning properly, you're not setting things in proper tone, and it's I think it's a real concern, because a um, lot of brothers basically may be experiencing situation like this, and it's basically we didn't execute the patience that we needed. You know what I mean? And if we were to be truthful with ourselves and look at the things that we would have pushed for, that placed us in certain situation, then we could be honest with ourselves and say, okay, we didn't plan this properly. And I mean, not saying that there won't be situations where the risk will have to be, you have to take that extra risk. But as I said, for a lot of situations, it's not that's not the case. You know what I mean? That's not the case. So we have to examine ourselves and learn from situations so we can be better planners, um, more be peaceful and satisfied with ourselves. Because just to put this out there, yes, because um, just to give a small story, I don't want to make the video long, but even growing up as a child, I wasn't that fortunate. But even though um, being in situations like that growing up, I was I learned to be happy with the state that I was in, not seeking for too much because I wasn't expecting too much, so I wasn't seeking for too much. So one thing, you always see me with a smile, right? And you couldn't tell because I was always happy, you know what I mean? And that's what really content is dealing with, being satisfied or being at peace with yourself, you know what I mean? So the impulsive behavior or the needs that, okay, this is it and I have to get this. It's not. The Bible tells us the fashion of the world passed away and one come and next thing will come. And if you follow the trend of society, you just a go in our spending mentality like that. But if you don't, if you're not, um, if you're not in that position to live that type of life, then don't put yourself out the way because it's gonna affect you in the future. You know what I mean? So it's just really what I'm trying to say. So like yeah. Alright, so yes, we have to put our priorities and which are our needs at foremost, and we have to learn patience and stop trying to think that we're too smart to utilize a system at times, because even the system is never putting it's a yes, we know it's a wicked system. It's not set up for the poor. It's not set up for for the for we Israelites. It's not set up for us. So when we with that understanding, a lot of times don't try to play the system because the system is not set up to lose. And they weigh their pros and cons. So if a situation happens, let's for example you take a loan from a bank. Anyway you take it, they're not losing. But a lot of times when humans or people decide to go, they're actually looking at it the positive way. They're looking at the future like, okay, if this work out, then we can cover this. And then a lot of times it doesn't work out because you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what the future really have in or have in that aspect. So you planning ahead of something that you don't know of is taking a risk above your strength. You know, so patience. We have learned to exercise patience. Can't stop exercise. And patience is what suffering. So sometimes you have to bear the suffering. You have to try suffer. You know what I mean? Something that will try to come out of a certain situation and make it worse. Exercise patience. You know? So I'll read the next precept. Alright, so this is Luke 3 and verse 14. So it's Luke 3 and verse 14. It says, and the soldiers likewise demanded of him, saying, and what shall we do? And he said unto them, do violence to no man, neither accuse any falsely, and be content with your wages. Alright. So again, we have a great glory and a great kingdom coming for us. All the desires and needs will be granted unto you. And in that time period, if you put your cares to the Most High, the Most High is going to provide you with your desires. Let me just get that real quick. Salakia. Alright. So this is Psalms 37. It says, Psalm 37 and verse 3. It says, trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Right, commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Right, so again, making futuristic steps with the hope that things work out this way is never. The Bible says, sufficient is the day, the evil thereof, and boast not of tomorrow, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. You know, so these things we have to practice and put them in proper perspective. Again, I don't want to make the video long, so I'm just gonna cut it here. Yes, be content. Learn to practice patience. Patience contains suffering. be thankful of what you have. A lot of persons don't have what you have. And the most thing we need to be thankful about is this truth, because this truth is everything. It's more valuable than rubies and all gold and all of that. So, with this knowledge that we have, with the power that we have, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua, all things belong unto us. But I have to put what we are not ready for aside until it's time. So that I want to say Kalalal Yahweh Bashem Yahshai Bashem Rakakwadash. Double honors again to the apostles and elders of James Stone. And to you came out there, Shalom.